But we can still talk about cosplay and costume crafts. That's what we're here for. And so my name is Amanda Wan. My cosplay name is Avalon, or at Padme Amanda.
Can they see you?
Can you see me?
I mean,
They can see me. There we go.
okay. Because she's wearing a really amazing outfit.
I'm wearing a Barbarian from Diablo 3, which I just finished making. It's my first time working with Warbler. Well, okay. I can't go around. It's okay.
Okay. Hello, I'm Sammy. I'm dressed up as Agnes, Princess Agnes from Despicable Me. Yeah. Dave here, and he waddles. I'll show you later. Anyways, so just to let you know, we have a lot of information for you guys. So we're just going to start rattling off everything. And if you guys have questions, we are over with on the M row, the ones in the windows, on this floor, and you guys can come by and ask us a million questions afterwards, but we really want to just feed everyone as much information from our heads as possible in this hour. So
Yeah. So let's just give them a quick background on what we do and how long we've been doing it.
Yes.
I'll start. So I've been doing cosplay since, I don't know, 2004, unless you count when I was in second grade, I made Ninja Turtle costumes out of cardboard. But since about 2004 or so, maybe a little earlier, when all the Star Wars movies started coming out, I started doing Star Wars costuming for the Rebel Legion and 501st, and then later when I got into video games, I started doing like Warcraft and League of Legends and now Diablo 3. So I'm kind of doing the video game cosplay right now. But yeah, it's been just a hobby for me. But I kind of started with learning how to sew, and now I've started working with thermoplastics, and it's just really fun to learn different techniques. So I just want to share lots of techniques and ways to have fun and different ways to cosplay and help you learn how to get into it if you haven't done it before.
For me, I've been cosplaying since high school, so probably since 2000. It's always been a really fun fan thing for me. I really like the being creative, so it's really fun for me to also learn techniques to try to make outfits. I started off a lot in the anime space, branched out a lot into video games, and now I just do whatever I think is really cute and fun. I used to do the sexy thing. Getting older, so I'm just gonna have fun. And obviously, this is not sexy, but it's really damn fun.
So some topics that we're going to cover are first time cosplaying, some things about what you should be aware of for your first time and how you can start out really easily. Accuracy versus making it your own. What's the, where's the balance there? Fabric choices, props, how to make props, or different ways to think about making props, or what kind of props you might want to have with your cosplay. Foam, Worbla, Wonderflex, different unconventional materials other than just sewing that you might use to create your costumes. We'll talk about wigs, photography, poses, and Photoshop. Some extra topics like where to cosplay.
If we have time.
Yeah, we're just going to talk about as many things as we can. We don't have the photos, but we can talk a lot, so.
All right, so first to start, sorry, these are going to be my notes as we're going. A lot of people, as their first cosplay, I see them kind of take on too much their first time. So they're not used to the time amounts it takes, or maybe some of the skills required. So I've kind of broken down first easy steps. And so the first easy steps is getting together some clothing. The worst thing to do is to have these intricate details, these wonderful props, and have no clothes to represent just the base character. So clothing. You can, a lot of times, I personally don't like when people go to the Halloween shop and just pick out a costume already pre-made. I like it when cosplayers take a little bit of effort. It doesn't mean that you have to sew every intricate detail, but have some creative hand in it. So if that means going to a thrift store and buying light clothing that matches up, then do so. And you can pick lots of easy, simple characters that wear normal day clothes to start and walk out on the street like that. And so start with your basic clothing, whether it be store-bought as normal clothing that you piece together. And then the next step is to start adding details. Do this in sequence because that means if you have an event to get to and you follow the sequence and if you get stuck in a certain point, it's okay. So next, when you start adding details like, let me think of a good example.
Here's an example. So say you want to be a TARDIS. Go buy a blue dress and then add the details to it. You don't have to sew the dress yourself. It is awesome if you can. But if you don't have any sewing skills, go find a blue dress in TARDIS blue and then, add the little windows and print out, some police box, and then you're a TARDIS. It's so easy just to cosplay even if you don't know how to sew.
And then the last trick is do a little extra research on your character. If it's a human, a TARDIS is hard for this example, but a human that has a certain posture, a certain signature fighting pose, a funny gesture they always do. Learn it, practice it, look in front of a mirror, and always be able to replicate that pose, because when people see you and you get into that pose, you no longer are a person wearing a costume, but you're now that character. And cosplay is about embodying the character for fun. Okay, the biggest thing we're going to teach you today, fun. If you're having fun, you're doing it right. If you're not having fun, put it down, take a break. Come back to it later. If you're still not having fun, move on. You should always be enjoying what you're doing as for cosplay, because cosplay is just a wonderful hobby. So, okay. Accuracy, okay. So accuracy, you see lots of wonderful cosplayers out here who, like, if you did not know that this character came from fantasy, you would thought he was in real day. But some of these people who do such details in the costumes, they spend a lot of time and money. We have our friend Aaron over at my booth right now. He's Joffrey from Game of Thrones today, so you'll probably see him around, hopefully acting a little snotty. And he spent $700 on his costume to make it accurate. Not everybody wants to do that. I know. So sometimes if you think you can kind of change out something for a $200 crown or a $10 costume shop crown, go for it. Remember, it's what makes you happy. You should be cosplaying for yourself first. If other people like it, sure, that's a great bonus, but do what you love. But talking along the lines of accuracy, what do I have? Oh, darn. Sorry, I'm just sad. I have these wonderful slides that you could see, but there's a lot of costumes out here you'll see that actually isn't what the character looks like. They could add a steampunk version of a character. They could be dressing up as TARDISes, which are not human objects. You'll see lots of humors where guys are wearing female costumes and females are wearing male costumes and making fun of it. This is our time to play. So do whatever that excites you. If you have a version of a character that you've always wanted to see, My Little Ponies as humans, oh my goodness, it became such a popular cosplay. They made a whole cartoon series off of it. Like, obviously people really enjoy it. So if that's the route you want to go and throw those genres into your cosplay. Go and humanify those milk boxes and McDonald's French fries. I'm not kidding. I've seen 2 of them already. People dressed up as Happy Meals.
Yeah, so at that point, when you're making it your own, you're throwing accuracy out the window. I mean, if you're going to make a costume your own and, do a female version or do anthropomorphic cosplay, I mean, yeah, you want to find those details that embody that character, but once you have those details that make it recognizable, go ahead and add your own artistic design into it and just make it your own. You don't have to stick to, the exact width of every single line or something, unless it's like the thing that makes that character that character. If you want to be accurate, then be accurate and do your research. There's a lot of research online, like the RPF forums, just Google pictures from movies or video games, screenshots. Get as much research as you can if you want to be accurate. But you don't have to be accurate when you cosplay. You can have fun and you can make it your own. That is okay.
Actually, Amanda mentioned about the width comment when it comes to clothing. we're in a day where a lot of television is giving us accurate versions of characters, and video games are becoming more realistic. But there are still the cases where some characters are completely animated. So I want you guys to keep in mind, when you're making a costume and you are going for accurate, you might never be able to make it 100% accurate. I don't know how many times I've gotten into arguments with people about the fact that that video game character does not have a seam line in their outfit. How do I sew an outfit without a seam line? Okay, you know what? We live in reality. We live in this reality. Some things, just get past it. Just accept it and move on. And then there's the opposite. So Spider-Man has all these lines all over his outfit. But if you really made it as thin as a pen mark, then they're not going to show up well in pictures. So what's a great tip to do is every time there is a marker line that you really want to accent, make it thicker, make it larger, make sure people can see it from far.
You can also use Sharpies on your stitching lines like I did on this piece. I actually used Sharpies to outline all the lines because the lines showed up in the screenshots.
Well, also, she did these painting of these white lines along her edges of her armor, which really helped create this shadow contrast effect.
It helps in the photos to have that, the highlights and shadows stand out more than you would think in real life. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. But playing with highlights and shadows in your costume, think about your costume as a work of art, not just clothing, because then you can really go outside the box.
All right, okay, so some other tips.
Picking colors.
You wanna do them?
When you are looking for your fabrics, so say you're going to Joann's, or maybe you're going to a fancier fabric store, or just Joann's, because that's all I can find around here. But, okay, go there prepared with, at the minimum, have your phone with you with pictures on it, or something, of your costume that you're going for. If you already have some fabric that you've bought, bring swatches with you. Make sure that your colors match up. You don't want to end up buying some fabric and then later realize I didn't get enough and then go back and then the colors don't quite match because it's a different dye batch and you're out of luck. One thing I did, I made a Supergirl cosplay once and I had a little action figure of Superman. So I just brought the action figure in and matched all the fabric swatches to the action figure colors. Because I was designing my own Supergirl, like a steampunk Supergirl. Which I wore here a couple years ago, I think. Maybe last year, I don't know. But yeah, so I brought the action figure with me to Joann's and then picked out my fabrics that way. And it was really hard to find the right blue, I tell you. Oh my goodness.
All right, so if you're ever cosplaying with with an outfit that needs multiple pieces of fabric, or you're doing it as a group, a great tip is to buy your fabrics together. Cohesion grammar. If everybody is wearing outfits made of the same material, it looks like a group. If one person wearing a shiny fabric and one person's wearing a dull, faded fabric, and they're supposed to be a pair, it kind of looks disjointed. And once again, it shows that you're wearing a costume rather than being the characters.
Yeah, we had an awesome slide for this with like 5 different groups of Powerpuff Girls, and every single group had different fabric in their costume, but each group had the exact same fabric. So there's a group of all fleece costumes, there's a group of all satin costumes. As a group, they're cohesive, but if you took one person from each group, they wouldn't quite go together.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're doing a group, plan the costumes together and you'll look really good together, even if you're all making your own.
If you're new to sewing, I have 2 great tricks to tell you. One, fleece is one of the easiest fabrics I've ever worked with. The reason why is it stretches around a human form, which means I can make a tube shirt. And then I can just put it on, and suddenly my curves in my body, it just fits magically. If you're working with satins or vinyls, each of those fabrics get harder to work with when they don't stretch. So fleece is a great way to work with. Also, it's a great time saver because I didn't hem any of my trims. I'm lazy. And I did my outfit in 1/3 of the time it would take for someone doing it in a nicer fabric. So I'm lazy. I'm not as patient as Amanda.
We have full-time jobs.
Yeah. My outfit probably took me about 2 weeks to work on. How long did yours take?
I started in November. I worked every night and weekend, whenever the baby was sleeping. Like all my free time on this, so I don't even know, probably 400 hours or something.
Yes.
But yeah, but you know, the sewing time was probably about 4 hours because I didn't have to sew that much.
You don't have that much fabric on you.
No, no, which is wonderful. Plastics are awesome. We'll talk about that in a minute.
All right. Okay. On the opposite scale, when it comes to fabrics, a great way I've learned about just jazzing up an outfit is you can create an outfit that's technically design accurate, but switch out every fabric panel with some beautiful Indian brocade, Chinese satin, the ones with prints. I've seen Princess Jasmine from Disney, and she switched out everything blue with this beautiful Indian sari fabric, and it turned it from, oh, that's Princess Jasmine, to, wow, she's so pretty. Yeah. So it's a great way just to, once again, make it your own and just like go up a notch. And honestly, the technique of making it of the two types was the exact same. It might have costed a little more for the nicer fabric, but she didn't spend any more time. Okay.
So another easy material to work with if you're just starting out is cardboard. Cardboard. So there's cardboard in here, but not the whole thing is cardboard. But honestly, okay, you could make boxes out of cardboard if you're going to be like a video game device or something. Start with a box and paint it. I mean, hey, I did that when I was in 6th grade, made my own costume. I think I was a refrigerator with a box. And that is a great way to start. You can actually get really detailed with cardboard costumes. You could even just do like a full cutout of Mario and stand behind it and walk around.
Yeah, that's actually one of the popular ones we have.
Or do like a Mario Kart out of a box. I mean, I've seen some really awesome cosplay out of cardboard. You know, even I've seen armor out of cardboard. And that would take a lot of time with cardboard. But hey, everybody's got cardboard, right?
Before thermoplastics were popular, though.
Yeah, it's probably before thermoplastics.
So
but hey, you know, I love a good cardboard cosplay. Yeah, and it's recyclable.
It is recyclable.
Another thing. Look for materials around your house other than cardboard. I did a Riven cosplay from League of Legends, and I made the arm pieces like this big tubular arm gauntlet thing. I made it out of a fruit juice jug from Costco and just covered it with craft foam. I mean, you can find stuff around your house that works. You know, just disguise it, paint it up. You know, you don't have to go all out for, latex and foam and if you don't want to. I mean, not everybody has a garage they can work in, right? So do whatever comes to your mind. Be creative.
Yeah, a lot of hardware stores actually have a lot more supplies than you'd think. You don't have to go to a fancy craft store or costume store. I actually done a lot of dumpster diving for a lot of my projects. I have a staff later today in the afternoon. If you see a pirate Harley Quinn, that will be me. I will really not look the same. But my staff was a throwaway tube from Joann's from their giant rolls of fabric. I asked them, can I have that? They're like, sure. It's just going to go in the recycling. So that was one place of dumpster diving. Another is at work. I work at a software company. Around here, everybody does. But they had a giant box that they put their rack servers in when they were shipping, right? So it was a new product. And for 3 months, I watched it just sit there in the hallway, waiting every day that it'd be empty so I could take the cardboard box home to make a prop out of. We're eco-friendly.
Okay. I actually did my whole Riven costume, which we can't show a picture of, but I did my whole Riven costume out of recycled materials and fabric that I just had scraps from. And so I think I spent a total of $30 on a Riven costume because I bought a wig. That was it. And, once you've cosplayed for a little bit, you've got extra scraps.
Oh yeah,
But hey, do whatever you've got. I mean, if you don't want to spend money on a costume, that was probably my cheapest, was about a $30 costume. But you can go anywhere from $30 to like $500 or more on costumes. It's really what you want to work with and how much you want to spend.
The stuffing in this head is just leftover fabric.
Whatever works. Whatever
From your
works.
closet. You don't know that. All right.
So let's talk about props. So props are a really fun way to jazz up your cosplay. If you're walking around like this, you know, how much can I really pose as a barbarian if I don't have a weapon? I mean, you got to have a weapon. So if you're a barbarian. So of course I had to make an axe. I really wanted to make two, but I didn't have enough time. I made this week. But yeah, so it allows you to do a lot different poses than just standing around. It also gives you more interaction with people, you know, if they want to hold your prop and you're okay with that, or if, you know, kids love stuff like this. I mean, come on, what kid's not going to run up to that? And, you know, props just make it a lot more fun. And, I mean, you know, it's endless, the types of materials you can use and the techniques you can use. But part of the creativity of cosplay is coming up with what kind of prop you can have. I mean, you know, I see Sammy here with her cute little, you know, unicorn princess dress. I'm like, where do I know that from? Where do I know that from? And then I suddenly see the minion, and it's like, oh, duh, Despicable Me, you know? It makes it really obvious where she's from because of her prop. Otherwise, it's like you'd have to know the character, but she's super cute anyway. So talk about props. So there's a lot of things you can make props out of. One thing I've used is insulation foam. It comes in these gigantic sheets the size of like a door at like Lowe's or Home Depot, any construction type stores. They're usually blue or pink foam that's about like that thick, and you have to carve it with a hot knife. That's probably the best way to do it.
You can use a box cutter, but
it's really messy.
Investing in a $20 hot knife will save you hours.
Yeah, and you don't, like, you can use the little ones that are like a thin stick, but if you get the nice ones with a good blade on it, that's going to really help you cut the foam. But one thing about working with insulation foam, you can cut it, prime it with something other than a spray primer, because you cannot spray any type of canned stuff on foam or it will disintegrate.
I've melted an entire Final Fantasy sword in 30 seconds that I had worked 6 hours on.
Whoops. Yeah, lesson learned, don't spray anything directly onto foam. Always prime it with a good thick layer of some kind of primer first. You could use gesso or gesso, however you want to say it. It's a good thick white primer. You could just buy primer in a can at your paint store. I've used that before, but put a good layer of primer on any kind of foam you've got before you paint it. You can also sand foam really well. Get a good power sander, because sanding by hand is going to take forever. But just a simple little hand power sander works wonders on sanding foam. And once you've got it sanded down, you can prime it. You can also use Drydex or any kind of putty on it. But you want to get a good hard surface over on top of that. So you might want to use, you could use wood glue to prime it. That's a good primer, except it bubbles. So you have to be careful about using wood glue, because you have to put it on top of another primer. Otherwise, it's going to like soak all the moisture out of your Drydex. Anyway, so Drydex, primer, wood glue, nice hard surface. Do lots of layers of it. But one thing with insulation foam is you can't really like build into it. So you have to kind of build around it, because it's a big sheet of foam, right? So how do you get a stick inside of a big sheet of foam? It doesn't really work. But you can spray foam around a stick. So if you've got a stick like this, which is PVC pipe, you can take spray foam and spray around it. Then you've got your stick already through your foam. You don't have to drill a hole or anything. So that's another type of foam you could use.
I do want to make a comment. When you're sanding foam, I don't have a power sander, so I've done mine by hand. It does take a long time. Do it outside. You don't want to breathe that stuff in. It's not good for you. It's meant to be inside walls, not outside. Yeah. So don't breathe it in. And also, the little particles, they get everywhere. So you want to do it in a place that you can clean up easily, in a garage that can sweep it away. Trust me, you don't want to vacuum it, and it's probably just not good for your health to have it all over the house.
Yeah, you need a shop vac at that point. My garage is a mess at the moment because I've got foam everywhere. But yeah, so if you want to use any type of foam, there's a lot of tutorials online on how to do it. A lot of people have used different types of foam for their cosplay. I totally recommend going to YouTube and just doing a search on foam and finding out on techniques. One thing about foam is you do want to, it's going to probably have holes in it. It's probably going to be a rough surface. So after you've sanded it to the shape you want, what you got to do is give it a really good paint job, and that will transform it to whatever material you want. So like, for example, this looks like metal and leather, but it's really like plastic and wood glue and paper mache. But yeah, you got to put a good paint job on top of it. So painting techniques are something you can actually find that on YouTube too. Lots of good painting techniques. We can't go over painting in this, you know, it's too not enough time. But you can turn your foam into wood. You can turn it into metal. All it takes is paint. So I highly recommend looking up some painting techniques online to really help you out with that, like dry brushing, detail painting. All you really need is like one good fat brush or one good detail brush. That'll cover you. So let's talk about craft foam. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay, so craft foam is those sheet foams that all the kids always use in like camp. That is a great way to make a cheap version of this. I've been able to make a Final Fantasy armor based off it. I used the same kind of painting techniques. Craft foam is actually, it's in sheets and it's actually kind of easy. You can actually create a lot of these rounded curves because you can heat it with a high iron. You put an iron on a low setting, it kind of softens, and then you can put it around things and just let it cool, and it will hold its shapes very well. Okay, so when I say it's cheap, it is very cheap. That means your cosplay might not last a week. Your cosplays might not last a battle. So keep in mind, if you're ever going to do this, this is a very simple for small items that aren't going to get bumped in too much, or if you're doing purely photographs where you know you're going to be very set. So it rips and it doesn't last. But if you need something quick, fast, cheap, it's a pretty decent option.
Craft foam is also great for adding details to things. So for example, I've got actually a lot of craft foam on here. I just put it like this arrow kind of shape and stuff. That's all craft foam put out directly on top of my Mod Podge installation foam or expanding foam. It's really sharp when you cut it with scissors, and so you can get really crisp details. I have a friend that does props for Broadway and movies and stuff, and he will create like a book and use craft foam to do all the details of like an embossed surface on the book. It looks really awesome if you just use do all your details with craft foam and just as long as it's something flat that you can put on top of something else. Okay.
So we've actually come across this really interesting material which dries into foam. And it's not the spray can. It's actually Crayola's Model Magic. It's just an air dry clay for kids to play with. And we've ended up using it a lot into our outfits. So you sculpt it just like a clay. You don't have to worry about baking it. You don't have to worry about things like the polymer clays actually get really heavy. So for small details, those are fine. But when you want big spikes all over your shoulders, I've made little figures that I would carry around out of this stuff. I would just sculpt it, just with my bare hands. It's made for kids, so it's very safe. I just leave it out to dry. And it's wonderful. It's lightweight, and you could use it all over the place. Only problem is it does take a little bit of time to dry. It may say a few days, but if you hold it, it's still kind of squishy, so you can very easily cause cracks. So if you're working with the material and you have a lot of time, and you have months to let it sit and just harden on its own, because once it actually hardens all the way, which I've seen it take like a month to 3 months, it becomes very durable. Mm-hmm. But if this is something you need in 2 days, it is not as reliable. So
I just wanted to show my foot here. So I made the claws out of Model Magic and then put Warbla, which is the thermoplastic, on top of them. That allowed me to get the shape of the claws by just modeling it with my hands really quick out of this foam clay. And then I just kind of let it harden overnight. And then I was able to shape my plastic around it really easily and just leave it in there because it's really lightweight foam, so I don't care that it's just sitting in there. Or I can dig it out if I want to, really easily with my fingers. So it's just a really versatile material to work with, just to use in different ways. I did use it for spikes on my Riven cosplay that looked just like these spikes. And one thing to note about that is I covered them with Mod Podge, but that wasn't hard enough, and eventually the tips can break off pretty easily because it is a fairly brittle foam. So I'd highly recommend if you are going to use Model Magic, give a good surface on top of it to make it nice and hard so you don't break pieces off of it.
Yeah, it happens.
So we're about halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about thermoplastics. Thermoplastics are kind of the more modern thing that's kind of going around, like Worbla, Wonderflex, all these fun words that we've heard of. So my armor that I have is made out of Worbla and Wonderflex. In different ways, I use them to build different things. So what it is a sheet of plastic. It is, how thick would it be? Like the thickness of like a sturdy tag board or something. You can cut it with scissors. You're going to ruin your scissors doing it, so I would dedicate a certain pair of scissors to your Worbla. But you can cut it with scissors. You can draw on it with Sharpies. Basically, it is the easiest thing to work with ever. All you need is a heat gun and some scissors, and you can just make armor. It's awesome.
And a lot of these extra tools we're talking about, like a heat gun, I don't remember some of the other ones, they're actually not that expensive. We've been able to acquire them for like $20 to $40. And if you're going to ever make more than one project, any of these tools are always very much worth it. I've also heard of some people that softened Worbla using hot water.
Yeah, hot water is actually a good way to go. You can also use your hair dryer if you're really patient. But I would highly recommend getting a heat gun. I use it on the highest setting, and it makes it a lot faster because it heats it up so fast. Basically, the concept of how you do it, there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube on how to do it, but really, you start with craft foam. For most of what I've built here, I started with a sheet of craft foam. I created a pattern. What?
Your arm's a really good example of
Arm's
the
a pretty good
shapes.
example. You start with a sheet of craft foam. You have to create your pattern first off of your body. So, like, I just covered myself in saran wrap, one body part at a time, put masking tape around it, cut it off. Kind of first I drew on where I wanted it to be, and then I cut it off. And then, you spread it out, and you've got your pattern right there. And then you can cut that out of the craft foam. And then you can add your details. The cheap way to do it is to do your details in craft foam instead of Worbla, because then you're using less of your plastic, which is expensive. So you could do these these raised details on my hands. I did by putting another layer of craft foam. I just cut the craft foam details out, glued it with Elmer's glue on top of the other layer of craft foam, and then I put the sheet of Worbla, heat it up, put it on top of it, and then just use a little, you could use your fingernail or a little sharp wooden tool and just draw around all the details to just get that nice indentation. It cools pretty quickly, so it's really easy to work with in that aspect. You just heat it up and then it cools. Wonderflex is similar. The only thing different, the biggest difference between Worbla and Wonderflex is Wonderflex has this like grid of fabric inside of the plastic. So it makes it stronger, but you can't stretch it that much, and you can't curve it around like your boobs or anything as much as you can like Worbla, because Worbla doesn't have any of that mesh fabric inside of it. I find Worbla a lot easier to work with than Wonderflex, but Wonderflex does have its uses, especially in small details because it's a smoother texture. It's also stronger because it has the fabric inside of it. So I don't know if you could see it, but my back plate is all Wonderflex because it was just going to be a big sheet of, just one big plate that's slightly curved. So I figured that'd be a good piece to do out of Wonderflex because it's slightly cheaper than Worbla. But if you're worried about it, just get a bunch of Worbla because you can do everything with Worbla pretty much.
Why don't you talk about them? What do you do with the leftovers?
What do you do with leftovers? Oh, yes. So Worbla, the awesome thing about that is that you can actually mold the leftovers like clay. I like to save all of my scraps and throw them in a box, and then you can heat up the scraps and push them together, and it sticks to itself. So every time you want to do another layer, for example, with the craft foam, I did Worbla on top and on the bottom, and then you press the layers around the edge together, and then you just trim it off because it seals itself, it sticks to itself. You don't have to use any glue, and it just molds together like one solid mass of plastic. So you can use all of your scraps, which are wonderful for making details like the spikes, all made out of the scraps. You can mold them into organic shapes, like if you want to do a crown of thorns or something, that would be a great thing to make your scraps out of. But you can't use Wonderflex that scraps that much, except for like patching holes. But
I don't know.
yeah.
I think when I play with Warbler, I kind of think of it as a pre-made sheet of clay, because clay is malleable until you set it, and like she said, you can mush it together and it becomes essentially clay. And the temperature that it kind of softens at and starts being tacky and sticks together is still actually, you can handle it by your hands. So you don't need like to worry about burning yourself.
You can burn yourself, but usually when you burn yourself, it's on your really thick pieces that you've been heating up forever, like the spikes. That's the only place where I burned myself, was making the spikes. But for the most part, all of the armor, you know, I didn't burn myself at all except on a couple spikes. So it's really easy to just use your hands. With Wonderflex though, if you use Wonderflex, I recommend cooling it in cold water because it takes a lot longer to cool, and that fabric mesh inside of it is going to make it want to spring back into shape. So if you're trying to mold it around something, I highly recommend putting it around your body part and sticking it under the cold water, letting it run for like 5 seconds to cool it off, and that way it'll hold that shape really quickly. With Warbler, you don't have to really worry about that much. Just let it cool because it cools really quickly.
You want to mention?
So I guess where do you get this stuff? Where do you get Warbler and Wonderflex? There's like 2 websites that you can buy it off of right now in the United States, unless there's another one I don't know of. But
3.
Is there 3 now?
Yeah,
I know there's cosplaysupplies.com, and then there's yayahan.com.
I like going to Cosplay Supplies better because it gives. Yaya Han's a big promoter of Warbler, but only Warbler. By going to Cosplay Supplies, you actually see multiple different types of thermoplastics to use, and they actually, for the people who've never used it, they have combo packs of the different products, which is how I started playing with it, because I wanted to do a comparison between Wonderflex and Warbler, so that's why I like going there.
Yeah, I get mine from Cosplay Supplies too.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like $5 cheaper. But
Is it? When I looked, it was the same price.
you have to count shipping though.
Oh, they counted shipping in very accurately for the price.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a couple places in the U.S. that sell it. So, again, the biggest thing here is to have fun. You don't have to make things out of plastic. You don't have to sew. You can come up with your costume any way that you can think of. But, there's a lot of elements to the costume that you need to think about if you need it, like wigs. Sometimes you need a wig.
Yeah.
So I'll let Sammy talk about
Okay,
wigs.
so we're both wearing wigs right now. This
I'm
one's
not a
obvious. Mine maybe not as much. I have lightened my hair, so it is a dark brown, but I don't have bangs. This is a wig for the bangs, purely, because I really wanted to be Agnes, and she has bangs. So I went and got some. Wigs is an interesting conversation. Because cosplay has become so popular in the United States, the supplies to acquire for making cosplays also become more competitive of a business. And because of that, a lot of the cosplay wig production companies and the quality of their products from Asia are actually starting to make their way over here. So let me just get my notes. So if you're ever getting a wig, here's some key things I want you to think. Heat resistant is my biggest takeaway. If you want to know anything about wigs, always look for the word heat resistant. When a heat resistant wig, what it is you can actually style it with your heating elements. Yeah, your curling irons, your straighteners. And usually I use that as my quality bar in my wigs, because a lot of the American manufacturers, even though they're made in China, they're for the one-night Halloween event. They aren't made to last. They will tangle. You try to brush it, the hairs start falling out. The quality is not good. When you get into a cosplay wig, because the quality bar over in Asia is so much higher, they've put quality into their products. And they're only like $5, $10 more now. You can't say that about 5 years ago, but I mean, I think you should be able to find them in exhibitors' halls. And what you do is you can buy one wig. You don't have to buy a pre-styled curly wig. You don't have to buy a straight wig. You can just style it with hair care products. Mousse. You can cut it and trim it to get your own hairstyle. Like I said, the curling iron. I love wearing curly wigs because, once again, they're really cute, and that's what I've really been enjoying lately. But after a few days at a convention, it gets really ratty. What do? I wash it with shampoo. I straighten with a curling iron, and then I recurl it. And every time I do that, it looks like a fresh new wig again. So I can have my very bouncy hair, very straight hair. And so it reduces the amount of wigs I need to acquire for my different cosplays, because of course wigs get expensive, and if you can reuse them, you want to. You can buy pre-styled wigs. Pre-styled wigs are also becoming really popular because they know that the heat styling can be done by the person. So now the next step is for them to mix colors. There's Rainbow Dash and Rainbow Dash is
Twilight?
Yeah, Twilight Sparkle. Two My Little Pony characters that have multiple color hairs. So a lot of the companies that are making wigs now are actually starting to make wigs with multiple colors. So you can buy them pre-styled. Usually they're just because they took the time to use the curling iron for you, and then you can reuse them however you want afterwards.
Yeah, you no longer have to buy a white wig and use Sharpies on it. unless
I've
somebody doesn't
done
remember
that.
to make it.
It is fun.
Yeah, you
But
can
time
do that.
consuming.
You can
Yeah,
do that.
it is fun.
Yeah.
Another way to do it is if you want to have one wig with multiple colors, you don't want to invest as much, are things called hair wefts. Hair wefts is just a strip of hair. It could be small, long, depending on what you purchase, wide, short, and it's just a strip of what you would find on a wig. Essentially, what my bangs are just a weft. It's just a strip. And what people can do is you can tuck them into your wigs, you can sew them, you can clip them, and they just become a highlight in your hair. And therefore, you can style the colors to whatever color gradient you want, and you can reuse your wigs because you can take them out.
I guess, like, for an example, like the wig I'm wearing right now was a really, really long straight wig when I bought it. And because the one that was kind of like this wasn't quite long enough, so I was like, okay, I'll just buy a straight one. I'll use my curling iron on it, cut it myself. And I am not a hairstyler, but I managed to, to do it with one of my curling irons that I had at home. It wasn't too hard, just kind of took a while. But, and a little bit of hairspray. If you get a good heat-resistant wig, you can just style it kind of like your own hair. It's not too difficult, but go slowly just in case, because you don't want to melt your hair.
Yeah, low settings are always good.
Yeah.
The last thing is ponytails are always a really weird one to work with wigs. Because wigs, the companies still want to make a profit. So if you've ever taken a wig and pulled your hair up like this, a human hair, you don't see, you just see the roots. But if you do it in a wig, often you'll see a lot of fabric, and you'll see the wig cap and everything. There are wigs that actually look like human hair because they just put so much hair in it. Those do get really expensive. So what I recommend instead is something they call a hair fall. A hair fall is basically a clip-in ponytail. Yeah, so you can clip in your ponytails. Yeah, we have one in the
right there.
in the audience. Yeah. So you can clip in a ponytail. You can clip in a bun. I like to use two and clip in two.
Pigtails.
Pigtails. Yes. Cute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of options for wigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't forget your wig. I mean, one time I just thought I was going to be crossplay Superman steampunk crossplay. So I was like, oh, you just use my regular hair because I'm a brunette. And then people thought I was supposed to be Supergirl. I was like, okay, I'm just going to get a blonde wig and call myself Supergirl at this point.
And I think she looked drastically different once she put on the wig.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really a blonde, so it was kind of weird being a blonde.
Well, the fact that everybody thought you were just an almost complete Supergirl.
Yeah,
and
they
now
didn't really get that it was like a crossplay Superman.
That's why if you can get a wig, it'll make your costume look just that more spectacular if the character has especially funny color hair. Mm-hmm. Oh, eyebrows. I am at fault at this all the time. I never color my eyebrows. And it's so funny when I have a blonde wig and black brows. So if you're willing to take the effort, cover it with some foundation completely so it becomes the color of your skin tone, and then go back with some eyeshadow with the same color as your wig. That night and day difference of just little details. So, okay, so other wigs. You don't have to have wigs that just look like human hair. We've seen wigs made from yarn. I saw a woman who knit a hat and then she just strung yarn through it for her baby. It was adorable. And there's also cyberlocks. It's really becoming popular in the steampunk community. Came out of the cyberpunk community. They look like they're just ribbons.
They're springy ribbons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the most popular ones. Some people just use ribbons, and they just make a whole bag out of ribbons. So it looks really fantasy-like,
Very punk.
sci-fi. I don't know what's the word, but you can imagine in your mind. It's very unique. You can still get the sense of hair, but it's just one level above.
Yeah, it's great for like a doll look too, if you're like kind of a raggedy doll. So hair chalking. You want to talk about hair chalking?
Yeah, I've done that before. So hair tracking is a new thing that's pretty much just come up in the past 2 years, I think. And there's lots of products to buy, but I'm going to tell you the cheapest way to do it. Go to the craft store or department store, buy a $5 set of all your color chalks. You don't need the $20 set. You don't need the $5 per color set. You just need regular chalk that they use for drawing on sidewalks when you're kids. And what you do is you wet your hair, you just rub it on, and the particles fall off onto your hair, and they stick when they dry. So you can color any color hair, well, almost any color. Blondes obviously work a lot better. When you have dark color hair, I noticed dark colors don't work as well. Light colors on dark hair actually do show up quite well. So it's a great way to change the color of your hair. It's very cost efficient, and it just washes out with shampoo. Maybe 2 runs, but you get it all out.
We've got like a couple minutes left. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, I do want to talk about this one. Okay, so back to poses. Remember, some of the key things is do your poses like your characters. Better yet, if you want to play with other cosplayers, make a scene. I have this great picture here where it's a Cyclops and Thelma from Scooby-Doo, who both lost their glasses, and they're both feeling the ground looking for it, right? It makes a wonderful picture. So if you ever want to take a picture out on the convention floor, if you can play with these little scenes, especially with other cosplayers, do it. Just have fun, just playing character.
I saw like 2 Batmans and a Robin once, and they're all like pretending to fight each other. It's pretty funny.
Oh, do's and don'ts. Don't take pictures in bathrooms. I have many of them. Don't, if you're wearing glasses and your character doesn't, take them off for the picture. And the biggest one, hide this when you're taking pictures. This says, I'm a congoer. This says, I'm Agnes, congoer. Agnes. So, you get the point.
So let's give you some quick online resources for your cosplay. So first of all, we have a cosplay crafting blog that we write together called CraftersInDisguise. It's www.CraftersInDisguise.com. If you want to check it out, we've got some tutorials on there, some information. You can just kind of search the site to see different topics and stuff. But you can also check out some other sites that might be helpful, like the Replica Prof forums, the rpf.com, which is great for doing movie or video game replica costuming. If you're trying to copy exactly Captain America from the first Captain America movie and you want to know what his belt buckle looks like, you can go to the RPF, and someone probably has posted about it. They also have a lot of 3D imaging files for people who like to use Pepakura, I think that's how you say it, or 3D printing to create your costuming. I mean, have fun with that. I haven't done that myself, but you can get a lot of files on there too.
Oh, if you do want to ask questions about that, the third person that's at our booth today, he has done a lot of 3D printing. The Game of Thrones, he got that 3D printed. It cost him $200 for 4 pieces. It was not even put together, and he had to paint it himself. So 3D printing is expensive. Now, I expect this is one of those things in a few years as more people purchase machines for their own personal use, they'll go down in price. But it is an option to just watch out for for the next few years.
And you can often find the files online. So if you have a friend with a 3D printer like I do, I could go find some files and then go send it to him and say, spend your next 3 days printing this out for me. Also, there's the cosplay tutorials on DeviantArt. It's cosplaytutorial.deviantart.com.
Yeah, I managed that one, so that's why I'm going to plug it. Basically, there's a lot of cosplayers on DeviantArt, and a lot of them make tutorials, so it's a great one-shot place.
Yeah, and I also want to plug Kamui Cosplay's YouTube tutorials for Warbler and Wonderflex because they are awesome. So we need to wrap up. Is that the 0 or the 5?
That's the 5, so we're gone.
That's the 5. We're good still?
We're good.
Okay.
No, we're done.
We're done. Okay, we're done. So,
right.
you know,
let me say-
cosplay local conventions. There's a lot of them here. Just to wrap up.
I do want to say I do have my laptop. If anyone's interested in looking at the pictures, because there's a lot of examples that you could just get some ideas off of, or get any of these these sites information, feel free to come by my booth. We'll just pop up the laptop and you guys can scroll through it.
And her booth is Small Rainy Lady right on the other side of the elevators. So thanks everybody for coming, and I hope you enjoy Emerald City Comic Con.